This video is about secrets of US naval power in the Pacific Theater. Subscribe for more. The Pacific Theater was a vast expanse of blue salt water, but it was also a stage for one of history's most critical conflicts. In the spring of 1942, as World War II raged, the United States found itself at a strategic crossroads. The air was thick with tension, and the echoes of the recent attack on Pearl Harbor still reverberated in the minds of the American public and military. The stakes had never been higher. Commander James Harlow stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, one of the Navy's most formidable aircraft carriers, gazing out at the horizon. His sharp blue eyes reflected the determination of a man who had seen too much death to let it consume him. Harlow was a veteran of the Great War, having survived the trenches of Europe, but now he faced a different kind of warfare, one that demanded ingenuity and relentless spirit. He had a haunting dream of avenging the lives lost at Pearl Harbor, as his younger brother lay among the casualties. A naval strategist, he knew the Pacific's vastness was both a blessing and a curse for the United States. By April, the United States had begun to piece together the puzzle of Japanese military movements. Intelligence reports indicated a potential strike against Port Moresby, New Guinea, which would provide the Japanese with a launching point to threaten Australia. Harlow's task was to intercept and neutralize the threat before it materialized. But in the shadows, a darker force loomed. Germany's influence in the war was spreading beyond Europe, and their clandestine operations in the Pacific would soon become a pivotal concern. Harlow's first officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Whitman, joined him on the bridge, a determined look on her face. Her expertise in code-breaking had earned her a reputation that reached beyond the Navy. In her early 30s, she was both resilient and resourceful, a woman carving her place in a male-dominated world. "Commando, we've intercepted a transmission from a German U-boat operating in these waters," she announced, gripping a stack of decoded messages. "It appears they are coordinating with the Japanese." A chill ran down Harlow's spine. The German Navy had been quietly making its mark in the vast expanse of the Pacific, and their partnership with Japan was a revelation that could alter the dynamics of the war. "What do we know about their movements?" Harlow's voice was steady, but urgency underlined his words. "They were planning to supply Japanese forces on the island of Guadalcanal," Whitman replied, her brow furrowed. "If they succeed, the balance of power will shift dramatically. We cannot let that happen." The two officers exchanged a glance filled with unspoken understanding. The stakes had escalated far beyond a mere naval confrontation. They were now part of a geopolitical struggle that entwined the fates of nations. Harlow's mind raced with strategies. He needed to rally more forces, but most of the American fleet was engaged in skirmishes with Japanese fighters. Time was running out. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, the carrier buzzed with activity. Aircraft were readied, and crew members moved with urgency. Harlow felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. He summoned his squadron leaders to brief them on the impending mission. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the pilots gathered around him, their faces reflecting both confidence and apprehension. "Gentlemen," Harlow began, "we have new intelligence indicating potential cooperation between the Germans and Japanese forces at Guadalcanal. Our objective is to disrupt this operation before it unfolds. We'll launch a surprise air raid to target the U-boat supply line." The pilots nodded, their determination tangible. Among them stood Lieutenant Jack McCall, a young aviator with a fire in his eyes. He had joined the Navy to prove himself, to escape the shadow of his father's legacy as a war hero from World War I. This mission was his chance. "What is the plan, sir?" he asked, eager to absorb every detail. Harlow outlined the strategy. They would launch a nighttime attack, utilizing the element of surprise. The U-boats will be vulnerable, especially under the cover of darkness. We'll strike fast and hard. But we must be cautious. The Japanese have an air presence there too. As preparations continued, Whitman brought information concerning the German U-boat fleet. "The range is extensive, meaning they could be anywhere, but we have a window of opportunity before the Japanese reinforce their positions." This is the kind of battle he had envisioned when he signed up, one where audacity mattered more than sheer numbers. "Commander, if I can get a shot at one of those U-boats, I'll sink it," he declared, his youthful bravado impossible to contain. Harlow smiled, appreciating the fire in McCall. "Do it, Lieutenant. But remember, this is not just about glory. It is about strategy. We need to be smart." As night fell across the ocean, the vastness of the Pacific transformed into a haunting expanse of darkness, punctuated only by the stars above. The carrier grouped its planes, engines roaring to life, as the crew prepared for the mission of a lifetime. Harlow stood at the helm, adrenaline surging. He could feel the weight of history resting upon him, the echoes of previous wars mingling with the present. As the aircraft launched into the night, the glow of the carrier's deck lights faded into the distance. Harlow's heart raced, but he was resolute. The enemy was out there, and they were closing in on a crucial moment in the war. The fate of the Pacific depended on the actions of a few brave souls flying into the unknown. The squadron flew in tight formation, the roar of the engines harmonizing with the rhythm of their racing hearts. They were warriors, driven not only by duty but by the passion to protect their homeland. As they approached the coordinates, Harlow scanned the horizon, anticipating a confrontation that would test their mettle. Suddenly, a flare shot up in the distance, illuminating the dark water. Whitman's voice crackled across the radio, filled with urgency. "Commander, we've spotted the U-boats. They're in a tight formation, preparing to head south. This is it." The pilots tightened their grips, adrenaline coursing through them. The thrill of impending battle filled the cockpit, mingling with fear and anticipation. Harlow's heart raced. He knew this was a pivotal moment not just for them, but for the entire war effort. But unbeknownst to them, an adversary lurked beneath the waves, a German captain plotting a counter-strike. The U-boat fleet had received word of the American assault, and the tide of battle was about to turn in a way that no one could have predicted. As the first bombs fell, the Pacific erupted into chaos. The air was filled with the sounds of engines, explosions, and the cries of men fighting for their lives. Harlow's gut twisted as he watched the scene unfold, knowing that every decision made could change the course of history. But as the first U-boat was struck and began to sink, a torpedo shot out from below, aimed directly at the USS Enterprise. The fateful moment had arrived. Would Harlow and his men be able to survive this encounter, or would their resolve crumble beneath the weight of their enemy's cunning? The battle had just begun, and the secrets of U.S. naval power in the Pacific were about to be revealed in the most brutal of ways. The quest for dominion in the Pacific had taken a dark turn, and the struggle for survival remained shrouded in uncertainty. With the U-boats lurking and the Japanese Air Force closing in, the stage was set for an epic confrontation that would define the future of the war. The stakes were higher than ever, and Harlow realized they were caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse that spanned continents and ideologies. Little did they know, the true mystery of the Pacific would lead them down a path intertwined with espionage, sacrifice, and the relentless quest for power. What lay ahead would test their loyalties and challenge their beliefs, as the true enemies were not just those in the skies and seas, but the shadows of deception lurking in the heart of war itself. As the torpedo hurtled toward them, the question loomed large: would they emerge victorious, or would they fall to the depths, lost to the tides of history? The fate of the Pacific and the broader war was at stake, and the next chapter of their struggle was about to unfold. The torpedo raced through the water like a serpent unleashed, its trajectory set on the USS Enterprise. Inside the carrier, alarms bled, piercing through the chaos of the aerial assault. Commander Harlow's heart pounded in his chest as he tore his eyes away from the unfolding carnage above. "All hands, brace for impact," he shouted, his voice cutting through the din. The crew sprang into action, some manning the anti-aircraft guns while others raced to the deck to prepare for the imminent threat. Harlow gritted his teeth, knowing that every moment counted. The aircraft above were engaged in dogfights with Japanese Zeros, the sky ablaze with tracer rounds and the acrid scent of gunpowder. But the real danger was submerged, lurking just beneath the surface. "Lieutenant, signal the fleet." A Harlow barked at his first officer, Sarah Whitman. She stood resolute at his side, her fingers flying over the radio controls. "We need to warn them about the U-boats. They can be caught off guard." "Already on it, Commander," Whitman replied, her focus unwavering. As she relayed the message, the world around them seemed to blur, time stretching as they awaited the inevitable impact. Just then, the air was rent apart by a massive explosion. The carrier shook violently, throwing crew members off balance as the torpedo struck its side with devastating force. Harlow staggered, gripping the railing with white knuckles as he fought to maintain his footing. The ship groaned in protest, and a plume of fire erupted from below deck. "Damage control teams report," Harlow shouted. The response from the lower decks was immediate and frantic, men scrambling to contain the flames and assess the damage. "Fire in the engine room," came the reply from one of the officers. Determined not to show fear to his crew, Harlow steeled his resolve. He had survived the trenches in Europe, where death had been a constant companion. This was just another battle, albeit one fought against a more insidious enemy that had spread its tendrils across the Pacific. "Get the fire under control. We're not sinking today," he barked, rallying his men's spirits. Meanwhile, the pilots engaged in aerial combat high above the chaos, their hearts racing with adrenaline as they maneuvered through the skies. Lieutenant Jack McCall, his hands steady on the controls, weaved between enemy aircraft, taking advantage of every opportunity to fire. He had trained for this, but the stakes had never felt so real. The U-boats, as they had learned, were more than just a threat. They were part of a larger malignancy that sought to envelop the Pacific. McCall shouted into his radio as one of his comrades dove into an enemy formation. A Japanese Zero swooped in, guns blazing. McCall's instincts kicked in, and he banked hard to the left, lining up his sights on the enemy aircraft. A squeeze of the trigger sent bullets flying, striking the Zero and sending it spiraling down into the ocean below. "Good shot, keep moving." Hollow's voice crackled through the radio, bringing a surge of pride to McCall, but he hadn't time to celebrate. The air was thick with danger. He glanced down at the water, spotting the sinking U-boat, now aflame and vulnerable. "We can still hit them," he called out to his squadron. Their S-1 U-boat left floating. "Let us finish the job." His squadron responded, regrouping to target the remaining threat. Hollow's plan was taking shape. They would use the chaos to their advantage, exploiting the confusion among the enemy forces to land a decisive blow against the German-Japanese partnership. As McCall dove toward the last U-boat, the deck of the carrier shook again. Another torpedo, this one aimed at the heart of the USS Enterprise, was on its way. The battle was far from over. Hollow focused on the chaos unfolding and felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. He needed to protect his ship, his crew, and his brother's memory. "Command, we redetected another torpedo. It is seconds away from impact," a voice shouted over the comms. Hollow's mind raced. Evasive maneuvers, turn hard to starboard, he ordered, and the ship responded, engines roaring as it shifted direction. The torpedo detonated just behind them, spraying debris into the air. Water surged onto the deck, and alarms blared even louder. The crew fought to stabilize the ship as Hollow scanned the horizon for the remaining U-boat. "Where's that last one?" he demanded, his jaw set tight. "Directly ahead," Commander. Whitman shouted, her gaze locked on her instruments. "We need to take it out before it can regroup with the others." The Lieutenant McCall, "You closest, finish this," Hollow commanded, his voice resolute. McCall nodded, determination etched on his features as he adjusted his coordinates. With a steady hand, he unleashed a barrage of firepower on the U-boat, its surface bubbling and smoking as the rounds found their target. But just as victory seemed within reach, the cockpit rattled. "We rehit. Engine 2 is down," McCall's co-pilot exclaimed, panic creeping into his voice. The aircraft began to falter. "We going down. You keep it steady," McCall shouted, fighting to maintain control. His mind raced back to his training, visualizing the procedures that had been drilled into him during long hours of practice. He had to land this plane safely. One last push, he thought, and then he could turn his thoughts to the battle below. As the aircraft began to descend, McCall spotted the U-boat silhouette through the smoke. The crew of the U-boat, sensing the oncoming danger, scrambled to defend themselves. But it was too late. McCall unleashed the last of his rockets, sending them straight into the heart of the vessel. It erupted in a fiery explosion, debris scattering into the water like the remnants of a fallen dream. Cheers erupted over the radio, but McCall's heart sank. His aircraft was losing altitude, and the Pacific Ocean loomed ominously below. He gritted his teeth, clenched his fists around the controls, and focused on what had to be done. He shouted to his co-pilot, bracing himself for the violent crash that was about to unfold. At that moment, he was not just a pilot, he was a soldier fighting for survival, for his friends, and for the legacy of those who had come before him. As the aircraft hit the water with a bone-jarring crash, the carrier continued its battle against the German U-boats. Harlow kept a level head, directing his crew as they fought against fires and damage to their ship, knowing that each moment brought them closer to either victory or doom. The echoes of conflict surrounded them, a discordant symphony of war. But unbeknownst to them, a far more insidious threat was emerging from the shadows. The Germans had not just sent U-boats, they had other plans in motion. As the battle raged on, a covert operation was being executed on the island. A small team of German operatives trained in sabotage and stealth was making its way towards strategic points in the Pacific, their mission to cripple the American effort from within. The tide of war was shifting, and the secrets of U.S. naval power were about to intertwine with the clandestine machinations of the Axis powers in a way that would reverberate across the oceans. Harlow, McCall, and Whitman would soon find themselves ensnared in a game of espionage that would test their loyalty and courage like never before. They had fought hard against the tide, but the darkness was closing in, and the next chapter of their struggle remained shrouded in uncertainty. Would they uncover the hidden threats lurking beneath the surface, or would they be swallowed whole by the very secrets they sought to protect? The answers lay ahead, waiting to be revealed, in the maelstrom of a war that was far from over. The storm of chaos raged on around the USS Enterprise, with flames licking at the ship's sides and the roar of battle echoing in the night. Commander Harlow fought to regain control of the situation, his determination mirrored in the faces of his crew as they fought the flames and damage inflicted by the enemy's torpedoes. The carrier, wounded but not defeated, stood as a symbol of American naval power, and Harlow was determined to keep it afloat. Damage control teams report back. Harlow shouted, his voice cutting through the din. He felt the ship shudder again beneath him, but he also sensed the quiet strength of the crew rallying around him. Whitman's voice crackled over the radio, a beacon of hope amid the chaos. "Commander, we were working to contain the fire in the engine room. We lost power to one of our engines, but we can still maneuver." "Good work, Lieutenant. Get us back into the fight ASAP. We need to keep pressure on those U-boats while coordinating with the rest of the fleet." Harlow commanded, adrenaline fueling his every word. Amidst the turmoil, Harlow's thoughts turned to Lieutenant McCall. He had seen the young pilot Esfala as he had charged toward the remaining U-boat, but now his fate hung in the balance after that perilous crash landing. Harlow's heart raced. He couldn't afford to lose any more good men. High above, the remnants of McCall's squadron continued to engage the remaining Japanese fighters, their aerial ballet a dance of survival in the face of overwhelming odds. Jack's co-pilot, Lieutenant Tom Sanders, struggled to keep their damaged aircraft afloat, but the plane was already beginning its descent toward the ocean. "Hold her steady, Tom. We can make it," McCall shouted, gripping the controls with determination. The horizon blurred as they descended further. Suddenly, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of another American plane that had been patrolling the area. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Whitman, ever vigilant, spotted McCall's distress signal flashing across her radar. "Commander, one of our aircraft is in trouble," she yelled, urgency lacing her voice. Harlow turned sharply, taking in the situation. "We can't let McCall go down without help. Signal the other squadrons to assist." As Whitman sent out the call, Harlow's eyes searched the tumultuous skies above. Just then, a formation of American fighters broke through the clouds, heading straight for the struggling aircraft. "Hang on, McCall. Help is on the way." Came the radio reassurance from one of the pilots in the formation. With a fierce determination, McCall's heart surged at the sound of their voices, igniting hope within him. "Brace for impact." McCall yelled again as the ocean loomed closer. The only thing he could think of was surviving this nightmare. He initiated the emergency procedures they had rehearsed, pulling up at the last possible moment. The plane skimmed the surface of the water, sending sprays of sea foam into the air before it managed to level off, skidding across the waves. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived as the shriek of enemy aircraft cut through the air. Sanders warned, scanning the skies. McCall gritted his teeth, adrenaline surging through him. Get ready to take them out. Before they could fully recover from their crash landing, 2 Japanese Zeros swooped down, bullets tearing through the air. McCall and Sanders immediately unleashed a hail of fire in response, determined to protect their position. Meanwhile, back on the USS Enterprise, Harlow directed damage control teams as they battled the flames. "Get those fires under control. We need to maintain our position in this fight." As the crew pushed through the smoke and chaos, Harlow received word from Whitman, "Commander, the Japanese are regrouping. We need to launch another offensive soon before they can reinforce their positions. Prepare to deploy what aircraft we have left." Harlow ordered, determination etched on his face. The Enterprise groaned under the stress of the ongoing battle, but as the fires were extinguished and the crew steadied themselves, hope flickered back to life. With renewed resolve, the pilots loaded up, ready to take to the skies once more. As the aircraft began to roar back to life, McCall and Sanders fought against the lingering danger of the Zeros. The young aviator dodged and dipped, attempting to evade their fire while aiming to strike back. The ocean churned below them, a furious reminder of their vulnerability. "Keep it steady, Jack. We can't let them take us down," Sanders shouted, firing back at the pursuing Zeros. Just as the enemy planes seemed to have them cornered, the skies erupted with the thunder of American aircraft swooping in to assist. From the cockpit of his fighter, a fellow pilot shouted, "Cover him." "We've got your 6, McCall." The American pilots soared into action, a united front against the threats above. Harlow watched from the bridge, pride swelling within him as he witnessed the teamwork of his squadron. They were all fighting for one another, embodying the spirit of the nation's resolve. Suddenly, a piercing alarm cut through the air, snapping his attention back to the pressing danger. "Commander, we read detecting multiple incoming missile strikes towards the carrier," one officer shouted, panic rising in his voice. Harlow's heart sank. They were not out of the woods yet, the threat loomed larger than ever. "I want all hands on deck, prepare for evasive maneuvers," Harlow commanded, his voice steady but urgent. His crew sprang into action as the USS Enterprise prepared to dance with fate once more. As McCall's aircraft joined the fray, he felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with purpose. With his comrades at his side, they pressed into the heart of the enemy formation, determined to turn the tide against their adversaries. "Stay sharp, team. We're retaking the fight to them," McCall yelled over the radio as they dove toward the Zeros. The sound of gunfire rang out, and the ocean below churned with violence as their fate hung delicately in the balance. But unknown to them, lurking in the shadows, the covert German team had infiltrated the islands, their mission to sabotage the American operations gaining momentum. The plan was not just to attack, but to strategically undermine the very foundation of the American naval strength, a sinister twist that could unravel all that Harlow and his crew had fought for. As the battle raged on above, beneath the surface of the Pacific, a different kind of war unfolded, a battle of espionage and deception, one that threatened to engulf the region in darkness. "Commander, we need to break through their lines," McCall shouted as he spotted an opening in the enemy formation. "Let us push forward, to on my mark." The Harlow's voice rang through the chaos, his heart pounding with urgency. This was more than a mere battle. It was a fight for survival that would determine the fate of the Pacific theater and the larger conflict of the war itself. With the shadows of the enemy growing ever closer, Harlow, McCall, and Whitman would soon find themselves faced with a choice that could upend everything they believed. Victory was within their grasp, but so too were the secrets that could threaten their very lives. The battle for the Pacific was far from over, but with the stakes at an all-time high, Harlow knew one thing for sure: the next move could change everything. As the tide of war surged around them, they would need to wield their courage like a weapon to protect what mattered most before it all slipped away. What lay beneath the surface was as dangerous as the enemies above, and in the heart of the maelstrom, the secrets of war and the power of loyalty would soon collide in a way that no one could foresee. The Pacific was alive with danger, but the outcome was still to be written. Only time would reveal whether they would emerge victorious or be swallowed by the tides of history. As the USS Enterprise groaned under the tension of battle, Commander Harlow felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The sky above was a cacophony of gunfire and explosions, while below, the ocean churned violently, reflecting the turmoil of the conflict. He had rallied his crew through hell and high water, but the threat was relentless, and the stakes had never felt higher. "Keep your eyes peeled for incoming attacks," Harlow bellowed, his voice cutting through the chaos. The crew moved with a precision born of training, each member understanding that the future of the Pacific theater rested in their hands. Whitman stood at Harlow's side, monitoring the communication lines. "Commander, the Japanese are regrouping," she reported, her brow furrowed with concern. "They're replanning another assault. We can let them gain the upper hand. They'll send a message to the fleet. I want every aircraft we have in the air immediately," Harlow commanded, his heart racing as he scanned the skies. Meanwhile, Lieutenant McCall and his co-pilot Sanders fought ferociously against the remaining Japanese Zeros that circled like vultures. "We can just remain defensive. We need to push back," McCall shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. "Roger that. Let us take the fight to them," Sanders replied, gripping the controls tightly as they veered into another dogfight. The air was charged with danger as McCall and his squadron pressed the attack, determined to disrupt the enemy's plans. Smoke trailed from the downed Zeros, but victory felt elusive, a fleeting shadow just out of reach. As Harlow directed the efforts on the Enterprise, he felt a sudden jolt beneath him. "What was that?" he shouted, gripping the railing as the ship rocked dangerously. "Report, the commander. We have an enemy sub in the vicinity," one of the crewmen shouted. Davy launched another torpedo. Harlow's mind raced. Brace for impact, evasive maneuvers. The crew scrambled to follow orders, but the reality of war was unpredictable, and they were all too aware of the looming threat beneath the waves. The torpedo shot through the water like an arrow, its course unyielding, but just as it seemed it would strike, a sudden explosion rocked the area. "Another U-boat has been hit," Whitman exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. It seems our counteroffensive is working. They good. Keep the pressure on. We can let them regroup. Hollow's voice boomed with renewed hope. The tide was beginning to shift, and every victory, no matter how small, bolstered their resolve. Meanwhile, high above the chaos, McCall's squadron continued to engage the enemy. As bullets whizzed past him, McCall maneuvered with the grace of an eagle, weaving through the skies. I see an opening. We can take out the command center, he shouted over the comms, rallying his fellow pilots. Let us do it. On your lead. A voice responded, igniting a surge of camaraderie. With one swift motion, McCall dove toward the enemy formation, determined to strike the heart of the operations. Cover me, he called out, the roar of engines drowning out the sounds of battle. The American pilots swooped in, unleashing a torrent of fire on the enemy planes below. McCall's heart raced, every fiber of his being focused on the mission. Just as they approached the command center, enemy fighters swarmed in retaliation. Sanders yelled, his voice filled with urgency as the skies erupted in a violent clash of metal and fate. With quick thinking, McCall maneuvered out of the line of fire, his instincts honed from countless training sessions. We need to take them down now. This is our moment. He squeezed the trigger, sending a spray of bullets towards the nearest Zeros. One by one, they fell from the skies, their once menacing silhouettes reduced to flames engulfed by the vast expanse of ocean below. Back on the Enterprise, Harlow felt a surge of pride as he watched his pilots fight valiantly against the encroaching threat. They were breaking, he shouted, the energy in his voice electrifying the crew. But unbeknownst to them, the German operatives on the islands were deep into their mission. They had strategically infiltrated American supply routes, sabotaging equipment and laying traps. Their objective was to cripple the U.S. presence in the Pacific, a task they approached with deadly precision. As they moved through the shadows, their resolve remained unshaken, unaware that time was running out for their plans. Commander, we've received reports of sabotage. The Whitman shouted, urgency lacing her words. They retargeted our supply lines and communications. Hollow's heart sank. We need to send a team to investigate immediately. They're retrying to undermine everything we were fighting for. He turned to his crew, determination blazing in his eyes. Prepare a strike team. We're not letting this threat go unchecked. As McCall continued to battle in the skies, he felt a shift in the air. The tides are turning, and we have to make sure we protect our home, he said, focused on his mission. The squadron rallied around him, their spirits ignited by the possibility of victory. In a calculated maneuver, Harlow ordered a coordinated attack against the remaining enemy aircraft while simultaneously dispatching a team to the islands. We can't afford to lose momentum. Strike hard and strike fast, he commanded, his voice resonating with the power of leadership. As the American pilots descended into the heart of enemy territory, McCall felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. We were not just fighting for ourselves, we were fighting for everyone back home, he shouted, rallying his comrades as they plunged back into the fray. The battle unfolded like a tempest, each moment filled with fury and determination. The skies darkened with smoke, and the ocean roiled beneath them, a reflection of the struggle that raged on. With each passing second, the American forces pressed forward, determined to seize the day. As the strike team deployed, they moved stealthily through the jungles, navigating the treacherous terrain. Stay sharp and watch each other as backs, the team leader whispered, their resolve palpable as they closed in on the enemy's hidden base. A sudden barrage of gunfire erupted, reverberating through the air. The team sprang into action, their training kicking in as they fought back against the German operatives, refusing to let their message of sabotage prevail. We were not losing this war, one soldier shouted, determination igniting their resolve as they fought back fiercely. The conflict intensified, each side unwilling to yield an inch, but as the day wore on, the tide began to shift. The German operatives found themselves unprepared for the fierce resistance, their plans unraveling as the strike team pushed relentlessly forward. Back at sea, Harlow directed his forces with unyielding focus. Hold the line, we were not losing this battle. The ship rocked violently beneath him, but he remained steadfast, unwilling to let the enemy claim victory. Suddenly, a signal crackled through the comms. We've received word our ground team has successfully neutralized the sabotage threat. They're pushing the Germans back. The Whitman relayed, her voice triumphant. Cheers erupted on the Enterprise, filling the air with renewed hope. Now let us finish what we started here. Harlow shouted, his heart swelling with pride for his crew. With renewed vigor, McCall and his squadron dove back into the fray, unleashing a powerful assault against the remaining enemy fighters. The skies erupted with fire and smoke, each burst signaling a step closer to victory. "We be taking back what is ours," McCall shouted, a fierce determination lighting his eyes. As the last of the enemy aircraft fell from the sky, a collective cheer rose among the American pilots. They had fought valiantly, and now the Pacific felt a step closer to peace. Harlow watched from the bridge, his heart racing as he recognized the bonds forged in battle. As the dust began to settle, the USS Enterprise sailed forward, its crew resolute and united. They had faced insurmountable odds, and yet they emerged stronger, their spirits ignited by a shared mission. The battle for the Pacific was far from over, but for now, they had triumphed over darkness. Yet, as the sun set upon the horizon, Harlow knew there would be more challenges ahead. The shadows of war still lingered around them, and the true secrets of power, hidden agendas, and alliances would continue to shape their future. As they pressed onward, the bond between the crew deepened, a testament to their determination and courage. United by purpose, Harlow, Whitman, and McCall stood ready to face whatever lay ahead, their hearts ignited by the flame of hope. The secrets of U.S. naval power would continue to unfold in the turbulent seas of the Pacific, but as long as they stood together, they would forge a path toward victory. The tides of history were shifting, and they were determined to ride the wave toward a brighter future, one forged in sacrifice and resilience.